Morning, everyone. It's great to see everybody in person. We're looking forward to spending a few days with everyone here. I think we've got a great agenda lined up, and we're going to kick the day off today with something really special. My name is Mike Alexander. I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, Marty Hurwitz. Marty is the CEO and founder of the MVI. After careers in television, advertising, and oil, Marty became a third-generation jewelry retailer when he partnered with a childhood friend in a retail jewelry store in New York City in 1984. He founded MVI Marketing LLC in 1989 together with his wife Liz and moved to California, where they grew the MVI into an internationally recognized organization and raised two children, Ray and Helena. The MVI provides consumer and trade market research along with strategic consulting services to a global client list in the gem, jewelry, and watch industries. Today, the MVI is headquartered in Austin, Texas. This morning, Marty is going to discuss the health of the industry 2 years into the pandemic. He will discuss what you and your jewelers can do to gain momentum as the industry evolves, and he'll present the latest trends and market conditions for the jewelry industry as a whole. Our hope is that you walk away from this session with a deeper understanding of the challenges ahead and some new ideas on what you can do to set up your clients for continued success. With that said, please welcome Marty Hurwitz.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning to everybody. Great to be here and great to be anywhere, actually, for that matter. I appreciate you getting up so early for this and give you a little overview of what we're going to be talking about. We do have plenty of time for questions, and I encourage each of you to ask questions, challenge me on what I'm about to talk about. I'm going to give you a very detailed overview of where the industry has been, where it's going, particularly from the retail side of things, a lot about the consumer and how the consumer is evolving and where some of the massive challenges are and massive opportunities are as well. So as Mike said, I have this company that I founded with my wife, who was also in the jewelry industry when we met at the New York trade show 100 years ago. And she was on the manufacturing side. I was a third generation jewelry retailer, so I know a little bit about the business, except I'm not used to coming out in public for a couple of years, so I forgot my business cards for this trip. So if you'd like a copy of this presentation, you just have to email me, but I don't have a card to give you. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a paradox. I call it the macroeconomic paradox. Never trust a macroeconomist because they will always give you both sides of the story and not one specific answer. And that is certainly true at this time in our economic life. By way of that, I'm going to give you a story about an economist that was out fishing on Lake Winnebago for walleye. And it was in the middle of winter and the lake was completely frozen, except he didn't know he had to dig a hole. So he just started casting off the shore, throwing out his rod and his lure and just casting and hitting the ice and reeling it back in. Didn't really quite know what the problem was until another economist came up in his ice boat, sailed right up to him and said, "Hey, you're never going to catch any fish that way. Hop on my boat and we'll go trawling." Okay, not too many ice fishermen here. Thought that was a good Wisconsin joke. Anyway, they don't really know what they're talking about, but we're going to cite them in this presentation. And one of the first things we're going to cite is who knew that it took a global pandemic to push the jewelry industry into massive economic growth, unparalleled. In fact, it's known to all of us that just about the entire jewelry retailing community had a boom during the pandemic. There were a lot of things driving that, but the pandemic was a big part of it. But not for everybody. There were clearly some jewelers, and we'll talk about them today, who didn't thrive. They were in the minority. But before the pandemic, they had the same issue they had during the pandemic. They failed to change. They didn't see the opportunity. They couldn't find a way or a level of energy required to boost their digital presence or their clicks to bricks or their pickup service in the parking lot. They were just too lazy, too close to retirement, no succession plan, no youth coming into the business. They didn't get digital, or as we used to say, they were too busy licking the envelopes. Nobody really licks the envelopes anymore, but there were a small minority of retail jewelers that did not do well in the pandemic. They were probably the same group that were not doing well before the pandemic. You guys are at the tip of the spear of how to help these retailers go forward and prosper in what looks like it can be a massive continuing boom in jewelry going forward. But clearly there are some headwinds, and we'll get these out of the way right here at the beginning. There are a lot of us that aren't here today. We've lost a lot of friends, a lot of family, a lot of colleagues over the last 2 years in the COVID pandemic. Now we have a war that, although it's pretty far away from us, is going to affect what is a global industry. It's going to affect the entire world's commerce. Now we have a Russian diamond boycott. The Russian diamond mining entity, Alrosa, is about 30% of the world's diamond production. It's also a significant portion of the highest quality of that production. There is a customs law that now has to prohibit the importing of Russian rough diamonds into America, but we don't import any rough diamonds into America. Those diamonds go from Russia to India, where they are cut, and that alteration in their process actually allows jewelers to skirt the customs import law and cover it up. Unfortunately, consumers are very sensitive to chain of custody right now in all consumer goods, and particularly in jewelry. And so this Russian diamond boycott, and whether or not people are going to be honest about it in the jewelry industry, is a significant event that's happening right now. Then there's, of course, inflation. Completely out of our control, but it will affect consumer spending in general, and it certainly will affect jewelry spending. Smash and grabs, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, much more so than I am, but just seems like there's more, and there's more news about them. In the 24/7 information cycle, we are seeing these smash and grabs almost as if it's entertainment on the news. More consumers are seeing that. What does it say to them? More criminals are seeing that, and it's encouraging them to be repeat offenders in that situation. And finally, and hopefully this will not be the case, but maybe there will be a COVID resurgence. We just can't tell. So these are the headwinds we're facing. Despite these headwinds, how do we continue the momentum of the last 2.5 years of jewelry industry growth? This is going to be a key focus of our conversation today. So I have some bullet points of things that you should consider that are on the positive side of continuing this momentum. The first is, unlike 2008, the recession of 2008, there is plenty of wealth in the economy. Job growth continues to be very strong. These stats are from February, but in fact, there were more statistics just last week showing that this job growth is continuing, and unemployment is extremely low. So that's obviously a very powerful factor and allows people to have more discretionary income to spend on things like jewelry. Sorry, there we go. Here's one of those macroeconomists. You cannot trust this guy, but he really looks the part. He is the head economist for the National Retail Federation. They are predicting a continuing boom in the economy, particularly in the retail sector. You can already see this in the luxury goods sector. And jewelers, although they're a little bit concerned right now, particularly at the major level, they are expecting a strong year in Q4 2022, and they should be preparing for that. Historically, jewelry as a consumer category just grows and grows and grows, and it grows along with GDP, gross domestic product, and it has forever followed gross domestic product, and that there's nothing to say that will change. The more the economy grows, the more consumers spend. Even if it's 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, jewelry will grow and sometimes outpace GDP. That's a significant factor when you think about, well, is it going to go up or down this year? We don't know, and how the jewelers are feeling about that. There's really very little to worry about in that regard. This is amazing. The greatest marketing story ever told. I'm talking about the De Beers Diamonds Are Forever campaign. It's an evergreen story. It started in 1938 when the Oppenheimer family got together with NWAers and say, we need to tell a story about diamonds to consumers so they will buy them for an engagement ring. So they created a story. The story was they're rare, which was a myth. The story was that they're investments, which was a myth. And the story was that they symbolize love. Now that wasn't as much of a myth because that actually was true from prehistoric times. But this started in 1938. It began with millions of dollars, then tens of millions of dollars, then hundreds of millions of dollars. But nobody's spending money on that anymore. Yet the trend, this momentum of this story continues to this day. People now all over the world, because the campaign post-World War II went to Japan, went to Asia, went to Europe. People all over the world assume it is ingrained from generation to generation that an engagement ring is the symbol of your love, predominantly 90% of the time, a diamond engagement ring, although not all the time. So it continues, but it's evolving, it's changing a little bit, and we'll talk about that even more. This is the single most compelling thing that drives consumers either to websites or into jewelry stores. 80% of the business is that engagement ring purchase. But jewelry in general is primal. Adornment has been going on since cavemen and women. And the crafting of jewelry as a way of adorning or beautifying oneself is not going to stop. It just is. The metals change, the shapes change, the positioning changes, the product changes. But at the end of the day, humans need to adorn themselves, and they have chosen jewelry to do that. They have chosen jewelry not only to symbolize their own beautification, but also the emotions they feel about their partners and their families and their friends. Nothing stopping this. Finally, there's you. And this is significant because to a large extent, the retailing community needs wisdom from outside their own doors, outside their own stores. And they're looking to you in this room to be the tip of the spear, to be the cheerleader, to be the thought partner, because it's really hard when you're working in one store or two stores in a family-run business or even a big business. It's really hard to hear other voices other than your own. If you've been doing it a long time, you start to tune out outside voices. So when a crisis comes along like the pandemic, you really need to hear thought leaders or best practices from other industries, or you need to lean on somebody that you trust, such as an agent, to help you understand what's really going on in the outside world. So you're part of the continuation of this momentum as an innovation consultant, as a demographic advisor. Demography is destiny. Consumer demography is changing very rapidly. You need to help your clients understand that. A diversity implorer, somebody that implores the jewelry industry to go outside their comfort zone in hiring and presenting. And finally, a digital footprint encourager. Everything is about the digital footprint that jewelry has. You too have to find a way in your own businesses to emulate these models so jewelers can see what it looks like in your business and learn from it. You have to be the changers you want your customers to make. It's a $65 billion retail business in the US alone. That's 50% of the global jewelry retailing. Consumers just want to buy more and more and more jewelry year in and year out. All we have to do is open the doors to them. I'm going to take a break there. Any questions, any challenges, feel free to assault, question, challenge. Anybody? All right. There is one massive opportunity, though, to continue the momentum, but it's disguised as a real problem for the industry, and it's important for us to take note of this. And that's the next-gen consumer. They have arrived. I speak of my own children, and probably many of your children, 26 and 29. This group are just now beginning their career journeys, just now making the first real money of their careers, just now seeing discretionary spend in their pockets and their bank accounts. And they will be influencing consumer spend in all luxury goods in all categories, from food to clothing to jewelry, for the next 40 years. It's a massive demographic change that's upon us. We're not selling to the baby boomers anymore. We're now selling to this new next-gen group. They are powerful, they are global, they're looking at everything they purchase differently, certainly differently than their parents and grandparents did. In particular, they're looking at jewelry in a very different way. The jewelry they buy, the jewelry they gift, and the jewelry they wear. It's incumbent on us, and it's incumbent on jewelry retailers to understand this next consumer if they're going to thrive. Ironically, and surprisingly, they're not all just about the digital shopping experience. We have to reach them there because that's where they're living, but that's not how they all shop. They're very interested in custom design jewelry. They're very interested in concierge experience, and they are willing to pay premium for that. Now, everybody thinks it's all just click and see the database and buy the engagement ring. That's not what's really happening. The retailers that are thriving with this audience are engaging with them digitally in social media or on their websites. But what they're offering them as quickly as possible is a human interaction when they hit the websites, when they get into social media. And that human interaction is not a chat bot, it's actually a person. And those that are offering that to them are allowing them to upsell the consumer to a higher price point, a custom design, a shared experience where the couple comes in together to shop, to design something unique to them. So it's not just about a digital experience. And the way the retailers that have succeeded with this found this out was through the cost of acquisition in digital media. It costs a lot of money today. It's a very competitive space to get a click to your website in jewelry. The category in Google ad spend, diamond engagement ring or engagement ring, can be as high as $50 a click. That's not a sale, that's a click. So if you have to spend, let's say you get 1 in 20 clicks turns into a sale, that means you've spent $1,000 to get that one entry onto your website to make a purchase. Generally speaking, that is a male consumer, because males shop databases, females do not. And most of the diamond shopping experience online is a database experience. Well, what the smart retailers have figured out is if you have to spend $1,000 to get that sale and it's a male consumer, that's likely a once in a lifetime purchase. You lose. Unless you get customer recidivism, the lifetime value of that consumer doesn't justify the amount you've spent to acquire them. So smart retailers are seeing that now. They're seeing that Google ad spend is really making most of the money in jewelry marketing. And so they're now offering these concierge type experiences, human interaction as soon as they can. As soon as someone hits the site, they engage with them, either continue the shopping online or get them to come into the store. Or if it's on Instagram, they can shop right on Instagram. Soon you'll be able to shop in all social media platforms without having to leave to go to the website. So this is significant. The consumer is different, but they're shopping similarly, but not exactly the same. And you can't rely on just the males because they will only, for the most part, buy once in a lifetime. You have to get repeat customers. That generally means female customers. So a good friend of mine, Pam Danziger, is a writer for Forbes and a market researcher, and she created this acronym for this next-gen consumer, the Henrys, which means high earners, not rich yet. But sure, they are on their way. They are more money now than they've ever seen, and even more to come lately. They hold the purse strings to luxury brands' future, and they are a subset of the largest generation of Americans that is just now evolving. Right now, they're earning between $100,000 and $250,000 a year, and they account for about 40% of all household spending. They are critical to brands from Walmart to Gucci, and jewelry is right in there with the mix. Now, an interesting thing about this group you may or may not know is if they're in the tech sector and they're making a lot of money in tech, that means a lot of West Coast people or Austin people or Boston people or Chapel Hill people. They don't know what to do with all the money they're making. They started buying really fancy cars. Now they're buying collectible watches. They're buying Patek Philippe's. They're buying Rolex because they're just looking to find things to spend, even if they look like they might be investments. The stores in San Francisco, some of which you know, are really catering to Silicon Valley millionaires and billionaires, and they are booming, particularly in the luxury watch segment. It's also true for the finance millionaires and billionaires on the East Coast. They can't buy enough jewelry. They can't find enough Patek Philippe's to buy. And they are all in this age group, 25 to 35 to 40. The Henry's status symbols are less about traditional luxury brands, say Gucci, and more about brands that express their values and identity. This is a big opportunity for smaller, more nimble, independent retail jewelers because you have to tell a story about the values of the product you sell, and it has to be a transparent and honest story. I'm talking about things like sustainability, eco-friendliness, chain of custody of the product. Everything they buy, they want to know where it comes from, and they want third-party credibility of that statement. They don't want greenwashing. They don't want gaslighting. They want real, honest stories about where the product comes from. And they will pay a premium for that. But they can smell gaslighting and greenwashing a mile away. So if you're going to make these claims, they have to be third-party enabled, and there are plenty of ways to get that third-party accreditation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some research we just did with them, and this is the bulk of my company's business is consumer research about jewelry. And this research was conducted in last month, and it was with consumers 20 to 35 years of age to find out about their jewelry shopping preferences, their value drivers, their purchasing drivers, and how likely they are to pay premium when they buy. We do this regularly. We see it evolve from month to month, from year to year. It's quite fascinating what these consumers are willing to buy and what they're willing to spend. And it's worth jewelry retailers paying more attention to their own niche groups of consumers and figuring out where they're likely to spend next and where they're likely to pay premium. Another very confidence-building statistic we found is that 20% of the respondents in this study said they're going to spend more in 2022 than they spent in 2021 on jewelry. That's great. And almost 50% said they plan to spend the same. So this was right in line with some of the early results we saw from Valentine's Day, where the major retailers said that their results were in line, comparable to last year. Some were disappointed they didn't go higher, but it was a bit silly because it was unbelievable in 2021. So, you know, if it stays on the same path as 2021, that would be great. And it looks like it's going to. When asked about the importance of sustainability and country of origin knowledge when buying jewelry, 54% believe knowing country of origin of the colored gemstones, the pearls, the diamonds they buy is extremely important or very important for them. This cannot be overstated. And every producer, every retailer of every consumer goods, but particularly in jewelry where this has been difficult to show and prove, and where in fact the industry has hid this from consumers in the past, intentionally or unintentionally, in order to hide margin. This characteristic is critical to this next-gen consumer, and we owe it to ourselves to help retailers present a transparency story. It doesn't mean they lose margin because they tell the story. In fact, consumers are willing to pay premium when this story can be presented. And it's issues with the commonly called in corporate speak ESG, environmental social governance. This is foreign to the jewelry industry, but even the smallest retailer has an opportunity here to present this to the next gen consumer and profit from it. And they will pay premium, some 5 to 9%, some 10 to 15%, some 16% and higher. This is for diamonds, which historically have hidden their chain of custody. This is for colored gemstone, where it's almost impossible to trace the origin of any individual stone. It's for pearls. Pearls are getting a little bit easier to trace now because the pipeline of pearl supply is shrinking from the growers all the way to the retailer. But the premium is there. And I encourage you to encourage your clients to think about how valuable this can be for them. So, why is this a warning? Why is this not just an opportunity? It's a warning because of this. There's a compelling disconnect between what today's jewelry consumer looks like, which is younger, multi-ethnic, multinational, not gemologists, much more interested in fashion, less interested in craft, but quality still important. This is what they look like. Unfortunately, this is what today's jewelry industry looks like. And you can see the disconnect. Now, nothing against old white guys with gray hair. I happen to be one myself. But if we're going to speak to this consumer, we have to employ these people. We have to build career paths for these people, because younger consumers don't like walking into stores, people like this. They know what the websites look like with people like this. They don't even like staying on those websites. They certainly won't go into stores with people like this. So we need to employ more females. We need to diversify our staff. We need to talk about more about fashion and design and less about gemology and investments. And we need to evolve this younger face to the jewelry industry. Truth of the matter is, this audience here is much younger than the typical jewelry store. And that's something you can help them evolve into. It's a tidal wave challenge. The demography approaching the consuming population today is the destiny of all consumer goods, and it's defined by 3 massive spending segments: multicultural consumers, self-purchasing females, and next-generation bridal consumers, who generally now are shopping as a couple versus a man just buying something for a woman, and generally are looking for a shared experience, which often has custom design elements, or what they think is custom design. And self-purchasing females who really don't just want to buy white diamonds. They really look at jewelry as an accessory to their attire. They look at it as a fashion accessory. They would buy much more jewelry if jewelry stores provided them more fine fashion jewelry to buy in $199 to $2,000 price points. There's not a lot of that in most jewelry stores that are owned by old white men. So that's a tremendously underserved or unserved demographic that we need to keep in mind. I call this the tidal wave challenge because we need to embrace this consumer, we need to employ them, we need to create for them, we need to market to them in ways that are not database driven, that are not product driven. We need to tell stories that show the values that we have, that we share with them. We need to innovate for them, and we need to give them experience. He or she in the jewelry industry that wins this consumer wins the race. If you ignore them, you do so at your own peril, and there are 1,000 retailers a year rather, suffering from that and going out of business. The Godfather is no longer with us. That's De Beers doing that micro marketing I mentioned earlier. There is no more macro marketing for a $135 billion retail category that's global. We're on our own. Just us and this massive tidal wave of consumers who just want to buy more jewelry from us. Questions? Yes. Well, the short answer is massive, and it's a gigantic disruption, and I'm going to talk about that extensively in a few minutes. But great question. You nailed the key issue confronting everybody in jewelry. And it also a significant opportunity for exactly the reasons you mentioned. Diamonds are, and the mines, for the most part, go through a very convoluted supply chain, and nobody's ever wanted to reveal the traceability, transparency needed for this consumer in the mined diamond world, nor in the colored gemstone world. Lab grown is providing a solution to that as we speak, and it's having a major impact. Not just on traceability, not just on transparency, but also on profit margins for your customers. So I'm not ignoring your question, but I'm going to give you a more detailed answer in a minute. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Say again, sorry. Clearly, inflation is a big threat, and it's completely out of our control. So I don't know much that we can do about that. I just know that if there's continued job growth and continued salary growth, and we can mediate inflation, not us, but the Federal Reserve, essentially, I think we will be okay. I think there'll be enough demand to supplement that. But yes, prices are going up. Diamond prices have gone up dramatically in the last 12 months on the mine side. And will that stabilize? Remains to be seen. So it's definitely a factor completely out of our control. Any other questions at this point? Okay. So before we get into the lab grown topic, I want to talk a little bit about, it's not all doom and gloom. There are a number of people that get it, a number of your customers, a number of players in the industry that get everything I'm talking about. We should just take a look at these, because these are the best practices that we need to think about when we talk to our clients, when we try and evolve ourselves as thought leaders. And there's no question that Jewelers Mutual in general is perhaps the preeminent thought leader in the industry at this point, not just a seller of insurance, but actually a purveyor of intellectual thought for the entire jewelry industry, and you guys are a big part of that. So I'm going to give you a few slides about who gets everything I'm talking about, this demographic shift, the opportunity, what they're doing.
Hey, check 1, 2.
This just happened a couple of weeks ago. MJSA, the Manufacturing Association, announced an apprenticeship program. Seems like a pretty simple thing, but I never saw it before. It's really hard to find, if you're a young person coming out of college today, really hard to find a career path in the jewelry industry. In fact, you would likely go out and fail at 10 other jobs before you went into jewelry, which is exactly what happened to me. So we don't get the first round out of college. If you come out of Chapel Hill or Kansas, you're probably not going to sign up for a job in a jewelry store. Probably won't even sign up for a job with a jewelry manufacturer, because most of them are overseas now. So we need an apprentice. We need a clear program a path to success, a career path for young people to even want to get in the jewelry industry. You go to work for an independent jewelry store right now, wow, that's a really tough road to go. And if you're a female, you're really not going to like that career path being shown to you. So I thought this was interesting. I think we'll see more of this. I'm hopeful we see more apprentice program. There's a lot of need for bench jewelers, no doubt about it. The craft is struggling to get people. One of the most in-demand jobs in the world is a high-quality watchmaker to work in Switzerland to make these incredible technologically developed watches. Those jobs go begging for people. There's very few young people that get into that, but that's an incredible microengineering project to make a watch like they're making today. So I thought I applaud MJSA for going in this direction. We need a lot more of this to get more young consumers into the business. I'm sure you all know this woman, Gina Drossas from Signet. Just released some more earnings. They do about $7.8 billion in gross revenue. They're the largest retailer, arguably in the world, in jewelry. They are gobbling up market share. Every one of those independents that doesn't get it, that's falling by the wayside. Signet has a plan to take their market share. And they do it by acquisition of smaller businesses, some of which they bought during the pandemic. They do it by innovation internally, and they do it by a fairly substantial marketing spend. They're about 7.8 billion, which give or take is over 10% of jewelry retailing in the U.S. And their goal is to get to 9 billion. And you know something, they're going to get there pretty soon. We could all be following what they're doing very closely, both in e-commerce, click-to-brick, custom design, lab-grown diamonds, you name it. These guys are into it. They see everything that I just described to you, and they are taking advantage of it aggressively. Not to mention their top management is almost all female. These are just two young people that I know. They're unique, great kids. They're very rare on the manufacturing side. Their parents, some of you may know their parents. Kevin Peck, the group is called Color Merchants. They're out of New York. They're a wholesale distributor of colored gemstone jewelry. Unlike most businesses like that, their kids wanted to come into the business. So they brought them into the business, a brother and sister team. Not only did they bring them into the business, they gave them their own brand to manage, a new designer brand called Bravani. They got on the Bachelorette show on TV. They've got retailers banging down their door to carry this brand now. And it's all driven by these two young kids. This is a classic success story of where the jewelry industry needs to go. Their parents gave them enough rope to either hang themselves or succeed, and they went with it, and they really nailed it, and they are really doing well with it. And independent retailers that are carrying this Bravani brand, which is a brand story, usually retail independents don't want to tell brand stories. This is a brand story, bootstrapped up with all their own money, no big pocketbook, and it's working. And consumers are coming into stores asking for it. So it is possible for the transition I'm talking about to happen. This is Beth Gerstein of Brilliant Earth. Really a great rags to riches story, and now gone public just in the last year with an ethical jewelry, sustainability, conflict-free brand for next-gen consumers. Yes, a lot of lab grown, but not just lab grown, also mine. Unbelievable, powerful message this woman has created. And I think we should all retailers should be emulating what they're doing. And by the way, now opening brick and mortar stores to supplement their e-commerce business, because not everybody wants to buy online. This is Nora. Sorry, can't pronounce her last name. She's the CEO of Majuri, another great female success story, because she knew men are only once in a lifetime jewelry buyers for the most part. To have scalable lifetime value, you have to get to the self-purchasing female. She designed, along with her team, a collection of jewelry available digitally, all for self-purchasing female, price points $199 to $2,000, all fine jewelry, and was heavily rewarded by the financial markets. She raised $23 million venture capital money, and the site is terrific, and females flock to it. Not to leave the guys out, this guy is really sharp at what I described earlier, what you might call custom made, what his consumers think is completely custom, but we know it's not really completely custom, but it's certainly a custom experience for the jewelry consumer, and they really like what he's done. And what he does is, as soon as you hit the site, as soon as you make an inquiry by email, by phone, by chat, whatever, you get assigned a human being to talk with you by email, by chat, by phone, whatever you want. And they stay with you through the whole process, sometimes which is months long, to custom make this incredibly special piece of jewelry for you and your partner or whatever it is. And it's that concierge experience that drives lifetime engagement for his customer base. It also brings him premium spend because people will pay for that kind of engagement. Sabina Belli is the CEO of Pomellato. This is a very well-funded group, part of the Caring Group. And they really talk about female empowerment, not just with her and her team, but also bringing in celebrities into the conversation she has with consumers. Not just about product. Selling jewelry is not about product exclusively. It's about telling stories to your consumers about who you are and the values that you share with that consumer. The more you talk about product exclusively, the less you compel your customers to buy. The more you share stories about who you are, your life, your ambassadors' lives, your values, the more consumers will buy more from you. I'm sure you all know the Yerman Group, probably one of the first jewelry brands to go direct to consumer, to skip over the trade and say, I don't want to talk to the trade magazines. I don't want to advertise in the trade magazines. I don't want to do the trade shows. I want to talk to the consumer. When everybody else was doing the trade shows, these guys went to Town and Country and In Style magazine, and they advertised direct to the consumer. This was before digital. And they really started selling self-purchasing females years ago. This is probably the most powerful brand in the jewelry world with self-purchasing females. And now they brought their son into the business as well. Very unique guy in the Pacific Northwest, Eric Bronmore. He is a leader in the fair trade gems movement. He owns mines, he makes jewelry, he cuts stones. He practices what he preaches when it comes to fair trade gems. He's been doing it for 25 years, and now it's just coming into vogue with his retail and manufacturing customers. You may have seen this Jewelers of America 20 under 40 list recently. These are retailers that are younger, more innovative, and capturing the imagination of younger consumers. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I picked out a few that I happen to particularly like. And some of you may know them. They may be customers. I don't know. But Alexis Pattis in San Francisco, again, that's part of the Silicon Valley jewelry boom. They are doing extremely well. They offer a choice. They have female leadership. They have 12,000 plus Instagram followers, which for an independent retailer is unbelievable. Amanda Coleman Phelps in Maryland, great storytelling on the website, not product-based, female leadership, community involvement, cause marketing. You have to have a cause for people to buy from you that's more than just the profits in your bank account. And it has to be a real cause, not a fake cause. Cause marketing, interaction with a community association, a community charity is very powerful for today's consumers to see. Constance Palomalu also in Maryland, custom design right up front, first thing on the website. Diversity on staff, lots of self-purchasing images and stories on the website. People hit that website, they got about 15 seconds to love you or hate you. You really don't have a lot of time. Two things you need is content that's not product driven, and you need dynamic website changes. You need the content on the website to change regularly, weekly. You can't, it's not a brochure. You can't make it static. It has to change. First of all, if it doesn't change, Google doesn't pick you up in the next search spider that they do. Search engine optimization requires changing content. If you just leave the content the same, you lose. Also, if a consumer comes on and sees a blog that you have on there and the last entry was from 2018, you're dead. Christian Bowling, Denver, Colorado, custom design, prominent diversity and ownership. This is extremely rare in the jewelry industry, and this has to change. We have to diversify ownership across all, the whole ethnic spectrum, the whole gender spectrum. Jordan Dubin, Houston. That's a giant town. A lot of jewelry being bought there, a lot of jewelry stores there. Already next gen management taking over from parents. A lot of community involvement. Very transparent with his rankings, his digital rankings, star rankings. Got them right up front from every source, from Yelp, from Google, from everything. Puts it right there, lays it right out. Good or bad. Tricia Kennedy Thompson, Missouri. Custom design right up front, video content right up front. Video is extremely powerful for the next gen consumer. Valerie Madison, very young ownership, complete female team. Very modern styling for self-purchasing females, and a lot of color and subtlety, not all about white diamonds. And finally, Sue Reckner, CEO of WD Lab Grown Diamonds, which is an absolutely spectacular company growing diamonds right here in the USA. All third-party sustainably certified, all chain of custody transparent, not cannibalizing the mine diamond business. Forget that. They're offering a choice to the next gen consumer. I'm going to pause there. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I'm going to answer any questions anybody has. Okay. We're doing good. Hey, you can interrupt anytime. We're heading into the home stretch, so anything pops up on your mind, just raise your hand. So talk about continuing the momentum. In 2008, during the recession, there were two things that kept jewelry retailers alive. Anybody know what they were? Gold buybacks. Incredibly powerful in the recession. One other branded product that hit the US market at that time that really helped jewelers out. Pandora. Those two things in 2008 saved retail jewelry community. Now, we had COVID, and hopefully we don't need that forever to keep the boom going. But there's one other giant market opportunity that really exploded during the last 2 years of COVID, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. If we were in any other consumer goods industry, shoes, clothing, food, and I came to you and said, I have an incredible technological innovation. It's in a legacy product category that's been around a long time. Everyone in the supply chain will make more margin on this than they've ever seen in their lives. And the consumer will get greater value for this, for their spend. Keep in mind, by the way, when every consumer shops for jewelry, they all have a budget in mind. Nobody shops unlimited. They all go in with a budget. Consumers are now flocking to the stores asking for this product, but nobody is marketing it to them. Nobody's advertising it to them. They're hearing about it virally on social media from their friends, from news stories, and they're walking into 75% of every jewelry store in America, and they're asking for this product. It is not cannibalizing the market. It is growing the consumer pie. And it will grow your retail business. You will see profits like you have never seen before. And all you have to do is offer a choice with this new technological advancement. What would you say? If we were in any other industry, you would say, come in and show this to me immediately. What did these guys say? Here's what they said. It's not real. It's not rare. It's not an investment. It won't hold its value. It will be a race to the bottom. Consumers won't accept it. It will devalue my existing inventory. What about the myths I've been telling my customers all these years? I will never sell it in my store. And my favorite, over my dead body. That's what the jewelry retailing community said about lab-grown diamonds when it first hit the market. But this is what consumers said. Between 2010 and 2020, without anybody marketing this product to them, the next-gen consumer, and even some older consumers who had previously bought a very small mine diamond, because they could hardly afford anything at a young age, now started coming into the stores hearing about this and wanted to see lab-grown diamonds because they wanted a bigger diamond for less money. So the scale of consumer awareness with no marketing in 2010 was at 9%. That's when we first started studying this. And in 2020, it was at 80% of consumers we studied knew about lab-grown diamonds. Next-gen consumers love a tech story. They love tech innovation. It drives their lives, it drives their work, it drives their relationships, it drives their heart condition, it drives their weight, it drives everything in their lives. And when they started hearing this story, they said, wow, that's really interesting. I'd like to see it. Not only is it a sustainable story, not only is it not mining, digging earth out of the ground, not only is it not conflict or blood diamonds, this is a really cool tech story. How did they make these things? Well, when they learned more and more and more about it, they wanted it even more. It turns out the more they learned about it, the more they wanted to buy it. And we've been tracking this since literally 2004, because that's the year that the scientists in the lab-grown space first became able to grow a 1-carat white diamond of gem quality. The technology's been around since the 50s. General Electric invented it. But in 2004, the scientists first became able to grow 1-carat white gem quality consistently. Not a lot. They still can't really grow a lot of it today. They certainly can't grow enough to support the demand that's happening. That's a big problem that people don't know about. But now they can grow bigger and better stones in the lab. And it's bigger and better value for everybody in the supply chain. From the grower, to the wholesaler, to the jewelry manufacturer, to the retailer, to the consumer. The consumer comes in with a budget. Let's say the budget is $5,000 for an engagement ring. A good retailer doesn't say, hey, I can reduce your budget. You don't have to spend $5,000. No, that's stupid. What they say is, let me show you this new product. This is incredible. It's lab-grown diamonds. It's exactly the same as mine diamonds. No difference whatsoever. For your $5,000, you can have a 1-carat mine diamond, GH color VS1. For your $5,000, you can have a carat and a third lab-grown diamond of exactly the same quality. 7 out of 10 consumers gravitate to the lab-grown diamond. No questions asked. All they do is explain the story, tell them the tech story. If the consumers want to hear the sustainability story, they tell them that too. This is an absolute revolution. So they learn more about it. It's mostly young consumers. That's okay. But there's plenty of older consumers also buying this product. And they're buying it in droves. They can't grow them fast enough. 2020, the ownership of lab-grown diamonds was 10% of the people we surveyed. 2022, it's 15%. It's between 5% of the global diamond market right now. Global diamond market right now is approximately $82 to $85 billion at retail. Right now, we're at about 5% to 7% lab-grown. We'll be at 25% in 5 years. It's not just America. It's also in Europe. It's also in Asia. We are getting inquiries about our research from Japan, from India, from China. We just did a study in Europe, in Italy, France, Germany, Spain, and Great Britain. Same number, 77%, 80% know all about this. Who's telling them? Nobody's advertising it. They just know about it. They're hearing about it. In Europe, there's more awareness of sustainability and eco-friendliness than there is in the US. Arguably, there's a more educated consumer in Europe. They're flocking to this product. They can't get enough stores carrying it in Europe yet. Now, let's stop there, and then I'm gonna show you something really fascinating. Sorry, before we stop there. So that's what consumers said. So you heard what the retailers said over my dead body. One of those retailers, I have a video. She was the most skeptical 3 years of this category. I want you to hear what she said today. Roll it.
Consumer, when they walk in the door, they are moderately educated. They believe they are very educated, but they are moderately educated from what they've seen on the internet. And social influence is very big, the whole viral impact. So they have a lot of questions, you know, be it a lab diamond or be it a mine diamond, they have lots of questions about the product. You know, and then we look at the fifth C we define as the C of choice. We clearly are retailers of lab diamonds, and we show them both mined and lab. We explain, you know, we answer their questions. We don't make decisions for them. They're the boss, and that's how. And I think there is a market for lab, and there's a market for mined, and there's a place where they intersect. You know, and the biggest piece of that, and you know, we sell, my company, we sell to the moderate consumer, to the upper end of the middle, the lower end of the upper. The broad base is our customer. We're not Tiffany, we're not Cartier. You know, so we have a different kind of a customer. You know, to that customer, what's happening is they're looking at, it's almost like the new 1 carat mine diamond has become a 2 carat lab. You know, and without divulging specific numbers, I can tell you that in 2021, we sold in units 50 times more 2 carat labs than we sold 2 carat mines. So even if you want to think I sold 10 mine stones, which I sold a lot more than that, I still sold 50 labs, 500 labs. So, you know, it's very significant in what's happening. And that customer took the average ticket up with it, where they would have been a $4,000 to $6,000 customer. They became a $7,000 to $9,000 customer, because the difference, you know, is enormous.
Unbelievable. 50 times more 2 carat labs than 2 carat mines. Absolutely staggering. 2 years ago, she didn't want to touch the category. That's Beryl Raff, the CEO of Helzberg Diamonds, one of America's top stores in Kansas City. Berkshire Hathaway Company, as conservative as you get. Margins are huge. Whereas mine diamonds now at retail could be single digits, this is 30 to 50% margin consistently, depending on the size of the stone. The ring is important. You know, consumers don't buy diamonds, they buy diamond jewelry. Yes. Well, I can tell you one thing, it's not a money issue. The financial markets are throwing capital at the lab-grown space to add chambers. Ironically, it's a human resources issue, because there's a big difference between the high-quality growers who have the scientific horsepower, PhD level material science teams that know how to have experience growing diamonds and can start from day one. And so those are the top growers. one of which is this WD lab-grown diamonds in the U.S. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have the Indian and Chinese growers who have the capital, but are already working with outdated chambers and don't have the PhD level scientists to grow the product. So really what we need to do is train more scientists to grow this product.
My biggest frustration, I talk with all they don't have a number that they can put on their inventory. Makes it very hard to measure.
You mean, yes, you mean a number of the value or a number of the stones? That's a great assessment of the situation. You're absolutely right. And right now we're in the Wild West when it comes to pricing. So I think this is going to mediate a little bit because the race to quality of lab grown is going now pretty full steam. And what's happening is the volume users, the Signets, the Helzbergs of the world, the jewelry designers, jewelry manufacturers that need consistent, scalable product every month of the same exact product, they can get custom grown stones from a grower, very different than the mine business. So that is gobbling up quality production capacity. There's a stabilization happening in the pricing as a result of it. Just like in mine diamonds, though, there is a whole low-end market happening. The Walmart, JCPenney lab-grown business that's basically buying on the spot market from India, and that's really driving a lower price for the product. I think we're going to see more stability happening. It's almost like a futures market is evolving. People are buying futures in future production, much more like the semiconductor industry, bakery industry than the diamond business. Oh yeah. So first it was the IGI led the world. Then it was GCal. Then GIA. They didn't want to do it at first, but then they saw they were losing millions in revenue in the certificate business, and so now they're all in it too. Correct. Right. This is exactly what Beryl was saying to us. So the pie is growing because of this product, not shrinking. And by the way, in 2021, De Beers and Alrosa at that time and the other mines were releasing more and more mine diamond onto the marketplace. And you know what? The market absorbed it all. There's no loss of mine business during the pandemic. Go ahead, sorry.
What is the future of the value of the mined diamond? You know, if I buy a 2-carat mined diamond today and I'm paying, $8,000 for it or whatever I'm paying, in 10 years, if the market is flooded with lab-grown diamonds, what is that value of that diamond going to be? I think that's a concern I hear from some of my clients of how they hold their value as this grows.
Let me ask you a question before I answer that. What's the value of that mine diamond without the lab-grown diamond market?
I believe it's all controlled by the amount that is being brought in. No, De Beers isn't controlling the output.
There's no controlling factor. The truth of the matter is, in mine diamonds, this is the myth that De Beers created.
Mm-hmm.
There's no rarity, there's no scarcity. We're not in the investment business. We're in the love business. You want to sell people investments, you send them to Charles Schwab. We sell love. Okay? If you buy a Mine Diamond tomorrow in the store, and you leave the store, it devalues faster than the car you buy and drive off the showroom. If most stores offer a buyback program, if the engagement doesn't take, if she says no, that really rarely happens, by the way. But Mine Diamonds without lab-grown diamonds devalue faster than a car. If you have to sell your diamond a year after you bought it, forget about it. You'll be lucky to get 20 cents on the dollar. In fact, less than 1% of consumers actually resell a diamond ever. Most diamonds are resold when they pass away in estate sales. And they come back on the market too. There's no scarcity of diamonds. So this is a bit of a red herring that the industry, traditional industry, put up to fight off the issue of lab-grown diamonds. Were you going to say the same thing? Good. All right. Any other questions? Okay, I got to hurry up because they're kicking me off the stage. So just a couple more points. Best practices. I will be around through lunch. Anybody wants to chat with me, I'm here. Jewelry stores are not what we want selling to consumers in this next generation. We want jewelry brands. We want stores to become brands, either in their community through community involvement, either in bringing their children into the stores, either in presenting brands digitally. Because next-gen consumers don't buy from stores, they buy from brands. Help your customers to make their stores brands. Here's one that I really like. In Southern California, Simone and Son. An incredible custom jewelry experience. If you don't know them, highly recommend you check them out. They are very digitally native. They are diverse. They are a complete consumer experience. They have screens in store to help you design your own jewelry when you come into the store. They find you on social media. They engage with you. They bring you into the store. They are experiential. They are high personal touch. They are digitally native, social media engaged, multi-generational, diverse, and community involved. They tick all the boxes. Now, you have to help retailers, you have to help the industry to evolve and grow. The industry is extremely healthy and powerful. The next generation will drive the fire of growth for many decades to come. But you, and together with Jewelers Mutual, can shape this destiny by being not just the agents of insurance, but the agents of change. And as I said earlier, Jewelers Mutual, what they are doing in thought leadership and presenting themselves to the industry is really powerful. And you can do the same by leading by example, by presenting brand values, by showing innovation in your own business and conveying that message to your customers. Please stay hungry, constantly innovate. Anybody that's a small business like mine, and many of you, you know this, you cannot stop innovating. You are constantly looking for innovating. Meet your clients where they want to meet you, not where you want to meet them. Expand communication, diversify. Everybody I talk to in a different way. I got WhatsApp, I got text messages, I got email, I got phone calls. I'm sure you have the same thing. You got to go where they want you to be. Be the change. Lead with things like cyber coverage, credit card fraud. Be the tech leader. Even if you don't think you're up to it, you can learn it. It's all self-taught. The trusted advisor. Show them the best practices, some of which we outlined here today. Don't just point out the challenges to them, bring them the solutions. And of all the things, if you leave here with nothing else from me today, remember that content is king. We don't sell jewelry. You don't sell insurance. You have to put your content, your stories, your intellectual property, your blog posts, your knowledge, you have to put that out front, not your product. You have to put yourself out front and use the content to be what drives them to reach out to you. Advertising doesn't drive consumer or customer interest anymore. Content that is credible, intellectually presented content gets people to call inbound. Inbound calls are a lot better than outbound calls. By inbound calls, I mean web clicks in addition to emails and phone calls. Any last questions before I run? Thank you very much. Email me if you want a copy of this presentation. I appreciate your time.